Yes, Maureen. So there are a whole lot of questions around the expansion of the single family housing component of the plan. That's just one policy in the plan, but it's coupled with 10 other policies that really, the goal is to create 10-minute neighborhoods where you would be able to have all of your needs met within 10 minutes of where you lived. And that being whether in a car, walk, or bike, or transit trip. So I would say, yes, those things are thought about in the plan. And I would just, want to start off by saying it's much more than the inclusive and diverse housing in goal 2, which expands the single family zoning component. And I would also add to that we would expect that, and I think other cities that have the same policy and regulatory aspect. So our policy would be implemented through the UDO and through the zoning ordinance specifically. There are being zoning districts crafted that specifically implement each of the place types, and one of them being neighborhood 1 and neighborhood 2. That we don't expect that. I think a lot of the fear is that overnight there's suddenly going to be duplexes and triplexes sprouting up, next to single family homes. And I think experience has shown in other communities, and also we just don't expect that this is going to be something that is going to be overrunning extensively single family neighborhoods. And I think other communities have shown that as well. So I just want to put that comment out there.
Yeah, I don't think it's so much the concern from the people that are out beyond Harrisburg Road and 485, so much about the concern about single family housing as much as it is the density and the lack of infrastructure right now. So it's difficult right now. I mean, there's only an express bus that runs out there Monday through Friday just during rush hour period. There's very few stores, shopping centers nearby. So, it's kind of like, I can see their point. I can see why they're concerned.
Sure. And I don't know if someone on staff can post in the chat the link to the 10-minute neighborhood component, but that's really what that is focused on, is that providing the goods and services you need within a 10-minute walk of your neighborhood, no matter what the density is. So yes, that is addressed in the plan.
So how about, when I looked at the comprehensive plan regarding the 10-minute neighborhood and about the CBAs, I mean, will there be an opportunity for people to really be able to have input with a CBA?
Sure. So that's a very new concept for Charlotte. And so that would be something that would be, many of the ideas within the plan are something that are more far reaching. And so as they are developed, yes, there would be many opportunities for community input. And so, the plan adoption, hopefully at the end of April, would not be the end of community input. It would be the beginning of community input for many other components like the place type mapping, community plans, many of the implementation items, including the community benefits agreement, that would be developed over time. So it's not really the end of input. It's kind of like an entree into the next step and implementation, and all of those components also have robust community input planned into them.
Thank you.
Tom Smart, how do the zoning changes, how do those impact communities that have already been set up, let's say gated communities? Does it impact them?
So the plan itself, the comprehensive plan, will not rezone any neighborhoods. I just want to put that out there, and I'm not saying that you're saying that, but it is implemented by the rewrite of the zoning ordinance. And no, I mean, if you have a gated community, if you have deed restrictions, whatever kind of private property constraints that you have, it would not change any of those. Those are all separate legal items that the city does not have purview over.
Yeah, that's it. When I'm hearing what's in this, because I haven't read it, it's coming across as different because I talked to a developer and he said, no, they're not going to change zoning restrictions. If you have a home now that's zoned, it won't impact that. It won't impact the setbacks. But that's not what I'm hearing if you just listen to the chatter. So maybe.
Right, yeah, and I mean that's a very good point, is that there is a lot of chatter, as you say, out there. And I would say, we're not trying to change anyone's mind about, what they think about any of these ideas. But I think that our goal is to get the correct information out there so that there can be community discussion. And then, if you agree or disagree, that's fine. Let's just have it be out of the right information. Right. So it does not affect deed restrictions or any of those things. There's been also talk about like the city coming and, buying properties and, demolishing single family homes. And that's not correct either. I mean, that's not something that the city can do. But any kind of private deed restrictions, any of those things, those are not within the purview of city government. Those are separate legal restrictions. And the comprehensive plan itself does not rezone any property. The next step with the comprehensive plan would be to map the place types, which would again be over the summer, would involve robust community input. At this point, we're developing the community engagement plan. It would involve, 45 plus community meetings, and they would be done on a smaller scale, meaning we would divide the city up into different kind of planning areas to talk with folks, just because it's easier to do that way. And the UDO mapping would then be separate after all of that, and that in itself will involve separate community engagement, and again, robust community engagement.
And the term UDO, that means?
That's Unified Development Ordinance. So it contains not only the rewrite to our zoning ordinance, but also the other ordinances that affect land development. So, it's not just zoning, but it's also, there's a variety of other land development related ordinances like stormwater and driveways and other things that developers have to navigate when they're developing property. So this is an effort to put all of those in one place. And because over time they've been developed by different city departments with different goals at different times, some of them are conflicting. So it's an effort to reduce those conflicts, make sure they all are speaking the same language, and put them all in one place to make development more predictable, really, for not only community members, but also developers. Because as a community member, you just want to know, well, what can I expect to be developed, next to me or in my neighborhood? And on the development side, those in the development industry just want to know what the rules are. And this is an effort to kind of make all of that more transparent and more predictable.
Good. You mentioned other communities that have implemented the same types of plans. Could you name some of those communities?
Sure. So Denver is one. Let's see, San Antonio, Texas Minneapolis. There's other Raleigh. There's others besides those, but those are just some that come to mind. And we have earlier on, this plan process has been going on for a couple of years. So very early on, that was part of what we did, was kind of do a best practices, scan to see, what are other communities doing, what works best, what can we apply to our community. There's a lot of other very small towns that have the same UDO component and also place type component to the comprehensive plan. And we're working on the comprehensive plan side with a firm out of Denver, Colorado called MIG that has written similar plans for many other communities, Denver for one, San Antonio is another one. And on the UDO side, they're working with Camiros, which is a national firm out of Chicago.
Okay, the plan would only apply to Mecklenburg County?
Yes, it only applies to the city of Charlotte and the what we call the extraterritorial jurisdiction. So the unincorporated portions of Mecklenburg County that would be annexed into the city of Charlotte.
Okay, good. Well, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Other questions or comments?
One other, the other cities and locales that have put these plans, have any of them had enough time now to come back and say this was a worthwhile effort?
Yeah, so for example, Minneapolis, Paul Magoosh, who is the community planning program manager for that jurisdiction. So he and the planning director were here a couple of years ago, right after their comprehensive plan had been developed. And so we have, as part of the outreach we're doing, we have a community conversation speaker series that we've kind of just wrapped up. The first one was Kimberly Driggins, who spoke on her experience in Washington, D.C. and Detroit. The second was Paul Magoosh, who talked about his experience in Minneapolis. So he was here a couple of years ago, right after they adopted their comprehensive plan, and he came back last month and talked about, so 1 year later, what have they experienced? They've kind of fleshed out their zoning ordinance, and what are they seeing on the side of the expansion of the single family zoning concept. So we have tapes of that I think Maddie has just posted in our chat session, that you're welcome to watch that. But I think, if I summed it up in a nutshell, their goals around their comprehensive plan were very similar to ours, and kind of the impetus of it, and reducing inequities and other things. I think one thing I would say, now Minneapolis is much more urban than Charlotte and much smaller land area wise, but as far as the expansion of the single family zoning, and again, it's more urban, so it's more similar to the close-in neighborhoods in Charlotte. And they really haven't seen, I think, what the fear is, in that the overrun of suddenly there's going to be all these duplexes and quadplexes and triplexes. They have not seen that. So those were just a couple of things that I'd mention. And Maddie has posted, I think, links to all of those community conversations in the chat, if you're interested in those. Are there other questions or comments?
So when would the city vote on this plan?
So the schedule is that we have a public comment session on March 22nd, which is kind of just around the corner. And then, ideally the council would vote on the plan April 26th.
But it's like most things that are this large, as you move forward with it, you suddenly find that half the folks at least people I talked to, weren't even aware of the plan. And of course, when they aren't aware of it, then they tend to pick out the worst parts to try and put the plan down. Because I myself, you don't have time to sit down and read a 300-page plan and pull information out of it. So if there's any other items you want to mention, it'd be great to hear those.
Yeah, sure. I mean, definitely we have heard that. And, I would just reiterate, and I realize people don't have time, but this process has been going on for really almost 3 years. And there's been robust community engagement throughout. Pre-pandemic, we did all kinds of things, pop-up meetings, regular community meetings, a variety of different things. And each time we had engagement, we were very intentional about making sure we were, gathering geographic and demographic data to realize, okay, who are we not reaching? And then figuring out ways, how can we reach where we're missing? And as part of that, then we pivoted to online engagement predominantly after COVID. And we've had a variety of different ways to do that. And, certainly not everyone has been involved, and folks are kind of coming in like at the back end, which is fairly common. We have a variety of things on our website. I don't know if you've checked that out, but we can definitely post a link to that. We have an ambassador toolkit. We have a stakeholder group that has participated with us throughout the process that's like over 450 people. And we have a variety of things that you can, post on social media and other newsletters, other things, and other ways to engage. So I don't know if somebody can post those.
I'm on it, Kathy.
Well, Kathy, I would say no matter what, it's better for people to wake up now than not at all. And that's what I'm hearing is lots of questions, because people that I really thought knew better are saying, that the city's going to do away with single family housing, and the concern about the townhouses, the duplexes, the quads. And, I think there just needs to be some sort of grounding of being able, I realize there's pictures, I've been through the comprehensive plan a number of times. I've been through plenty of presentations, and I think somehow or another within the communities, if people could really demonstrate something that truly is a concern rather than the fear of the unknown, which is what it seems, because, I've been around Charlotte long enough to know that, a townhouse complex of 12 or more units is not going to be dumped in the middle of a neighborhood. I see that in the policy when you talk about, the size of the lots. So a lot of it is just very emotional. And I don't know really, other than to continue to do the talking about it. I know you probably feel kind of blue in the face about that, but at the same time, people are just starting to listen, and people are really starting to pay attention and wake up. And I'm glad to see that. I really wish it had been sooner, but I'm glad to see it.
Yeah, definitely. Those are, great comments. And I don't think that, typically we haven't done a comprehensive plan since 1975. So we haven't done any sort of citywide land use planning effort in this way in, more than 30 years. So I think that we are very used to folks coming in on the back end and saying they've not been aware, but citywide, it's kind of overwhelming. And we continue to your point, find ways. So if we're not getting the word out there in the right way, what do we need to do to change that up? So the ambassador toolkit that we have that really kind of delivers these messages in a way that folks can easily understand and spread to their community through newsletters or social media posts or whatever it is that are kind of ready-made. We continue to update that. And we have a video, we have a variety of other things that kind of try to get the word out in a variety of ways. And if there's anything in that realm that we can share with you, either in the chat, or if that's not convenient for you, we're happy to email them to you after the session.
Yeah. Well, I think being able to reach out to groups, because for myself, I am a board member of Charlotte East, and being able to utilize groups such as ours to engage people, because I know for myself, when I look at the city's information, there's so much information there that I can't get my arms around it, and I cannot keep up with everything. But having the different advocacy groups within our board certainly does help with that, and to reach out to city to engage. And you all have been good about the engagement. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and I think Maddie has posted in the chat the links to the toolkit. Now that'll take you then to a Dropbox, but again, there are ready-made FAQ materials in there, newsletter materials, social media materials, letters of support. She's also posted links to the animated video, which gives highlights of the plan, like at a very high level. There's also a link to the executive summary. So realizing that, you know, it is a 300-page document, but half of that is the appendix. So you can cut that in half to 150 pages of reading, and there's a lot of graphics in there. So maybe it's not quite that bad. We also have a virtual open house. So because of the environment that we're in and not being able to do the usual, you know, large community meetings that we would do, this is kind of the next best thing where you can do it whenever's convenient for you. It's open 24/7, and it's basically the same experience as it can be of being in a community meeting and reading boards, and there's different videos and other things that kind of explain the materials to you. So we've tried to reach out in all the ways that we can, but to your point, Maureen, like if there's anything that you think that would make it easier for you as a community member to communicate with your other neighbors, we would be more than happy to hear that.
Thank you.
Rachel, Thomas, are there other questions or comments?
I don't believe so at this point. Thank you very much for your time.
And I just want to mention that Alicia Osborne, who is the project manager, has joined the call as well. And also our planning director, Taiwo Jaiova. I don't know if either one of you have anything you'd like to add.
No, not at this time. Thank you all for taking the time to have dialogue. I know folks' schedules are really busy every day, but particularly in this season is with Zoom calls all day. And I know it means a lot for you to take the time to actually have conversation with us. As Kathy mentioned, our doors are always open. This is just the first step of how we continue to engage the community around growth and development, and that this plan is meant to be a living document. So we will monitor, evolve, change it, revise it to meet the community's needs for years to come. So we look forward to continuing to work with you. Ty, I'm not sure if you want to say Hello.
Yeah, thank you very much, Maureen. I joined towards the end of your statement, and hopefully we can continue to make it easier for people to access materials, but that applies even to our document as well. So as we listen and as we make revisions, the final document will definitely be one where you're able to see right from the first few pages what to expect in the document. And then we'll probably organize our website properly at some point as well to make sure that what you're looking for, you don't have to dig deeper to get it. We want you as advocates. While we know that there's never a perfect plan, we do not want us to lose the sight of the very purpose for which this plan is being developed for our future and our children's future. And it's going to be revised periodically, so it's not set in stone. And that revision will be done subsequently with the community. So I really appreciate you taking the time to join us this evening. I'm not often able to join these sessions, but I'm glad I was able to call in today. And I appreciate your support and your questions and statements. Thank you.
And Rachel, you had a comment about, or a question about parks. And so there are many other plans that are going on simultaneous to this comprehensive plan. Our plan serves as sort of an umbrella document or a framework to all of those plans. One of them is the Mecklenburg County Playbook, which they have just released a draft of. And we have been working with the county, which county manages park and recreation facilities. So we have been working with the county on that and making sure that the policy recommendations in our plan are consistent with what they have in the Mecklenburg County Playbook. And I think Maddie has just posted a link to that draft in the chat.
Thanks for that, because I think there's that's a very important piece that we really need that collaboration to utilize our public space to the maximum.
Right, and we know that we cannot implement our plan alone. So we are committed to working with city, county, and other department and other partners, you know, because even in the city, there's a variety of different departments that have their own sort of goals and agendas. So we have worked throughout with an interdepartmental team, both city and county and other nonprofit partners, to make sure that what we're recommending in our plan is consistent with their goals and recommendations. And also on the implementation side, we'll be working with them as well. Any other questions or comments?
Thank you.
If there aren't any, I would thank you all for joining us this evening. And I don't know, Maddie, have you already posted in the chat? There's a couple of other opportunities. There's a community conversation that's citywide that's coming up on the 16th, if you'd like to participate in that. And also if you'd like to sign up to speak at the City Council public comment session on the 22nd.
Thank you. That's good to know.
I think we have one more question, Kathy, from Sarah. Can you tell us more about the financial? Sarah, do you mind clarifying what that question is? It looks like it got a little messed up in the chat.
Yes.
Okay, there was financial reference where there is an uptake in the city fund general from Ty, I think.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time finding that one, Sarah. So if you can maybe verbally say that, that'd be helpful.
Hi, I'm sorry. I don't know if y'all can hear me. I think in the plan, in the very back of it, it references some financial model that you all had run on it. And it suggested that there was either a 14 or 17% increase in the Mecklenburg County General Fund or City Fund using this plan as opposed to business as usual. And some of the costs in particular that I think it stated you were going to be able to save that were the largest were things like, I think it was fire and maybe road improvements. Anyways, I guess my question would be, where are some of those numbers, or what were some of those assumptions used to be able to run any type of finance model on this plan? And for some of those assumptions to have been used, there must be maybe some other assumptions regarding density and where the roads would be used more or less, or where fire police would be needed more or less. Can you tell us more about those assumptions and how that plan was, or the finance model was created?
Yeah, sure. So Maddie can probably post in the chat in our resources section on our website. There are links to a financial impact analysis that was done for both the city and the county. And I think that will give you all of the different numbers that you're looking for. Now, I will say it won't, what it does not do, it's not a, this plan will cost this much in terms of all of those different infrastructure items and service items that you recommended. But it does give a very good idea in terms of, where revenue is generated and what the impacts are to that revenue. So Maddie's just posted that in the chat. And so that's the link to the resources page. And kind of in the second, there's 2 line items of different resources. And that one's in the second line, and they're 2 kind of white page looking documents.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Well, if there aren't any, I would say thank you very much for your time this evening. I think that there's a variety of links posted in the chat, and also, Maddie, I'm sorry, but if there's not a link to my email and Alicia's email, if you could put that in there, we are happy to talk with you further if something comes up. Schedule individual time with you. And as I mentioned, there's a couple of other kind of more general opportunities for conversation coming up on both the 16th and the 22nd. So we hope you'll take advantage of those as well. But thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.